What would you do if the person you love the most walked away from you? Not because you cheated, not because you lied, but because you chose to save a child. This isn't just a story. It's a moment that broke a family and a decision that haunted a man for the rest of his life. Imagine this. A woman stands at her front door, her hands shaking, her heart full of love. In her arms, she holds a tiny baby, abandoned, unwanted by the world, but finally safe. She smiles softly and whispers, "You're home now." But the moment she steps inside, everything changes. Her husband looks at the baby, and instead of love, his eyes fill with anger. "Whose child is that?" he asks. And when she says, "She's ours, I adopted her," his world shatters. Or maybe it's his ego that does, because what happens next will leave you speechless. He doesn't hug her. He doesn't try to understand. He doesn't even look at the innocent baby who just needed a home. Instead, he walks away. Just like that. He leaves his wife, his home, and a child who never even got the chance to call him father. And for years, he believes he made the right choice. No responsibilities. No crying baby. No burden. Just freedom. Success. Money. But here's the truth no one tells you. Sometimes, the things you run away from are the very things that could have made your life complete. Years pass. That tiny baby grows into someone extraordinary. That burden becomes a source of pride. That mistake becomes someone's greatest blessing. And the woman he left behind, she doesn't break. She rises, stronger, braver, unstoppable. But the man who walked away, one day he sees a picture, just one picture. And in that moment, everything changes. Regret hits him like a storm, because he realizes something too late. He didn't just leave a situation. He walked away from love, from family, from a life that could have been beautiful. So now the question is, what happens when the man who once said, "This isn't the life I want," comes back years later, begging for a second chance? Will she forgive him? Will the child he rejected accept him? Or is this one of those stories where sorry is simply not enough? Stay with me, because this story will show you one powerful truth. Sometimes the choices we make in seconds can become the regrets we carry for a lifetime. The day she brought the baby home was the day her marriage began to fall apart. It was a quiet afternoon, the kind that felt ordinary, but for Emma, it was anything but. Her heart was racing as she stood outside the front door, her hands trembling slightly. Wrapped gently in her arms was a tiny baby, barely a few weeks old, sleeping peacefully in a soft white blanket. Emma looked down at her and smiled, her eyes filled with warmth and emotion. "We're home, Lily," she whispered. Taking a deep breath, Emma pushed the door open. Inside, everything looked the same. The neatly arranged furniture, the soft beige walls, the framed wedding photo hanging above the fireplace. A picture of a life that once felt complete. "Daniel," she called out. "I'm in the living room." His voice came from inside. Emma stepped forward slowly, her heart pounding louder with every step. This was the moment she had imagined so many times. But now that it was here, she wasn't sure how it would unfold. As she entered the living room, Daniel looked up from his laptop. At first, he smiled casually, but that smile quickly faded when he noticed the baby in her arms. His eyebrows furrowed. "Emma, what is that?" Emma swallowed nervously, but forced a gentle smile. "Her name is Lily." Daniel blinked, confused. "Okay, but whose baby is that?" Emma stepped closer, holding Lily protectively. "She's ours." The room fell silent. Daniel slowly stood up, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" "I adopted her," Emma said softly, her voice filled with both fear and hope. "Daniel, she needed a home. I couldn't leave her there." For a moment, Daniel just stared at her, as if trying to process what he had just heard. Then he laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. "You're joking, right?" he said. "This is some kind of joke?" Emma shook her head. "No, I'm serious." The laughter disappeared instantly. "You adopted a baby without telling me?" His voice grew louder with every word. "Without asking me? I tried to talk to you," Emma replied, her voice trembling. So many times. But every time I brought it up, you said not now or maybe later. I couldn't wait anymore. Daniel, she didn't have anyone. That's not the point. Daniel snapped. This is a huge decision, Emma. You don't just bring a child into our home without. Our home. Emma interrupted, her eyes filling with tears. Isn't this supposed to be a family, Daniel? Isn't that what we always wanted? Daniel ran a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. Yes, but not like this. Not suddenly. And he hesitated, glancing at the baby again. Emma noticed. And what? She asked quietly. Daniel looked away for a moment before speaking again, his voice lower now. She doesn't look like us. Emma felt her chest tighten. That doesn't matter, she said firmly. She's a child. She needs love, care, family. That's what matters. It matters to me. Daniel replied sharply. Do you have any idea what people will say? What this means for us? Emma couldn't believe what she was hearing. So this is about what people think, she said. Not about a helpless baby who needed someone? Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he began pacing the room, clearly overwhelmed. This is too much, he muttered. I wasn't ready for this. I didn't agree to this. Emma's grip tightened around Lily, who stirred slightly but didn't wake. I thought you'd understand, Emma said, her voice breaking. I thought you'd see her the way I do. Daniel stopped and looked at her, his expression cold. I don't, he said. Those two words hit harder than anything else. The rest of the day passed in heavy silence. Daniel kept his distance, avoiding both Emma and Lily. Every small sound, the baby's soft cries, Emma's gentle lullabies, seemed to irritate him. That night, the tension finally exploded. I can't do this, Daniel said, standing near the door, his voice filled with frustration. Every time she cries, it feels like my life is falling apart. Emma looked at him in disbelief. She's a baby, Daniel. Babies cry. This isn't what I wanted, he shouted. I didn't sign up to raise someone else's child. Emma flinched at his words. She's not someone else's child, she said firmly. She's my daughter now. Daniel shook his head. No, she's your decision. The distance between them had never felt greater. Tears streamed down Emma's face as she held Lily close. I thought we were a team, she whispered. I thought we would face things together. Daniel grabbed his coat from the chair. I wanted a normal life, he said. A life we planned together. Not this sudden responsibility. Emma stepped forward slightly, her voice desperate. Please, Daniel, just give a chance. Get to know her. She's innocent in all of this. But Daniel didn't move. I can't, he said coldly. The words hung in the air like a final sentence. Emma's heart shattered. I thought you loved me, she said quietly. Daniel paused for a moment, but he didn't turn around. I did, he replied. But this changes everything. And with that, he opened the door. For a brief second, Emma hoped he would stop, that he would turn back, look at Lily and realize what he was about to lose. But he didn't. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Yet it echoed like something much louder. Emma stood there in silence, her world collapsing around her. Lily began to cry softly. Emma looked down at her, tears falling freely now. It's okay, she whispered, rocking her gently. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. In that moment, Emma realized something important. She had lost her husband, but she had chosen her daughter. And no matter how hard things would become, she knew one thing for sure. She would never regret that choice. The silence Daniel left behind was louder than any argument. For the first few days after he walked out, Emma moved through life like she was in a dream, numb, exhausted, and overwhelmed. The house felt colder, emptier. Every corner reminded her of what she had lost. The couch where they used to sit together, the kitchen where they laughed over small things, the bedroom that now felt far too big. But there was no time to fall apart, because Lily needed her. Every cry in the middle of the night pulled Emma back to reality. Every tiny movement, every soft whimper reminded her that she wasn't alone, and that someone depended on her completely. The first night alone was the hardest. Lily wouldn't stop crying. Emma tried everything, feeding her, rocking her, singing softly, but nothing seemed to work. Her arms ached, her eyes burned with exhaustion, and tears streamed down her face as she paced the room. "I'm trying," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I'm really trying." After what felt like hours, Lily finally calmed down, resting her tiny head against Emma's chest. The warmth of her small body brought a strange sense of peace. In that quiet moment, Emma realized something. No matter how hard it got, she couldn't give up because Lily had no one else. The next few weeks were a blur of sleepless nights and long, exhausting days. Emma quickly understood that raising a child alone was far more difficult than she had imagined. Bills piled up, responsibilities doubled, and the emotional weight of everything sometimes felt unbearable. Eventually, Emma made one of the hardest decisions of her life. She sold a house. It wasn't just a house. It was memories, dreams, and the life she once thought she would always have. But she couldn't afford it alone, and holding on to it only made the pain worse. She moved into a small apartment on the other side of town. It was simple. Just one bedroom, a tiny kitchen, and a living area that barely fit a couch. But it was enough. It was their new beginning. "I know it's not much," Emma said softly one evening, holding Lily as she looked around the apartment. "But I promise, I'll give you everything I can." And she meant it. To support them, Emma started working 2 jobs. During the day, she worked at a small cafe nearby. She greeted customers with a tired but polite smile, hiding the exhaustion behind her eyes. At night, after putting Lily to sleep, she worked freelance on her laptop, writing, editing, doing anything she could find. Sleep became a luxury she rarely had. Some nights, she would sit on the edge of her bed, completely drained, wondering how much longer she could keep going. But then Lily would stir or make a soft sound in her sleep, and Emma would find the strength to continue. As the months turned into years, things slowly began to change. Lily grew. Her tiny hands learned to hold. Her soft cries turned into laughter, and her curious eyes began to explore the world around her. And with every milestone, Emma felt a deep sense of joy. "Look at you." Emma laughed one day as Lily took her first steps, wobbling toward her with determination. "You're so strong." Lily fell, but she got back up again and again, and somehow that reminded Emma of herself. Life wasn't perfect. There were still struggles. Money was often tight. Some days were harder than others. But their home, no matter how small, was filled with something Emma hadn't felt in a long time. Love. Real, unconditional love. When Lily started school, Emma felt both proud and nervous. She worried about how others would treat her, about the questions Lily might face, about the differences people might notice. And one day, those fears became real. Lily came home unusually quiet. She placed her school bag down and sat on the couch, her head lowered. Emma immediately noticed. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" she asked gently. Lily hesitated before speaking. "Mom, why do I look different from you?" The question hit Emma like a wave. She had always known this day would come, but she still wasn't fully prepared. Emma walked over and knelt in front of her, gently taking Lily's hands. "Because you are special," Emma said softly. Lily looked up, her eyes filled with confusion. "Special?" Emma smiled through the emotion building inside her. "Yes," she said. "You weren't just born into a family. You were chosen. I chose you, Lily. Out of everyone in the world, I chose you to be my daughter." Lily's expression softened slightly. "You did." "Every single day," Emma replied. "And I will keep choosing you no matter what." For a moment, Lily said nothing. Then slowly she smiled. And in that smile, Emma felt all the pain, all the sacrifices, all the struggles become worth it. As the years passed, Lily grew into a bright, kind, and intelligent young girl. She worked hard in school, always eager to learn, always curious about the world. Teachers often praised her. "She's one of the most dedicated students we've seen," one teacher told Emma during a parent meeting. "And she's incredibly kind to others." Emma's heart filled with pride. Despite everything they had been through, Lily had grown into someone beautiful, not just on the outside, but on the inside too. And Emma knew exactly why. It wasn't because life had been easy. It was because they had faced it together. Every late night, Every sacrifice, every tear, had built something strong between them, a bond that couldn't be broken. One night, as Emma tucked Lily into bed, she gently brushed her hair aside. "I love you, Mom," Lily said softly. Emma smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. "I love you more than anything in this world," she replied. As she turned off the light and closed the door, Emma paused for a moment. Years ago, she had lost her husband, but now, standing in the quiet hallway of their small apartment, she realized something deeply powerful. She had never truly lost anything, because in choosing Lily, she had found her purpose, her strength, her happiness, and a love so deep it made every struggle worth it. At first, Daniel felt free. The silence in his new apartment didn't bother him in the beginning. In fact, he welcomed it. No crying baby, no emotional conversations, no unexpected responsibilities, just peace. Or at least, that's what he told himself. He threw himself into work almost immediately. Long hours at the office turned into late nights, and late nights turned into weekends spent chasing bigger goals. Promotions, bonuses, recognition, these became his new focus. This is what I needed, he would often think. Control, stability, a life that makes sense. And for a while it worked. Daniel's career began to take off. His colleagues admired his dedication. His bosses trusted him. Within a few years, he had climbed higher than he ever expected. A better apartment, a nicer car, expensive dinners. Everything looked perfect from the outside, but something felt off. At first, it was easy to ignore. Whenever the emptiness crept in, Daniel distracted himself. He went out more, met new people, and even started dating again. The women he met were kind, interesting, and successful in their own ways, but none of them stayed for long. There was always something missing. One evening, during dinner with a woman he had been seeing for a few months, she asked him a simple question. "Have you ever been in love?" Daniel paused. The question caught him off guard. "Yeah," he replied after a moment. "A long time ago." "What happened?" she asked gently. Daniel hesitated. He could have given a simple answer. Something easy, something that didn't require explanation. But instead, he said, "I left." The woman looked surprised. "You left? Why?" Daniel picked up his glass, avoiding her eyes. "It just wasn't the life I wanted." He expected that answer to feel right, but it didn't. For the first time, the words sounded empty, even to him. The relationship ended not long after that. Like the others, it faded without meaning. And slowly, the distraction stopped working. The nights grew quieter, longer, colder. Daniel began noticing things he had once ignored. The silence when he came home, the untouched second side of the bed, the absence of laughter in his life. There were no small voices calling out to him, no one waiting for him, no one who truly needed him. And that realization started to weigh heavily on him. Years passed. Success continued to grow, but so did the emptiness. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, Daniel sat alone in his apartment. The city lights flickered outside his window, but inside, everything felt still. He picked up his phone, scrolling aimlessly through social media. Just another distraction, another way to pass time. And then he saw it, a familiar face. Emma. His thumb froze on the screen. It had been years since he had last seen her. But there she was, standing outdoors, smiling in a way he hadn't seen in a long time. Next to her stood a teenage girl, Lily. Daniel leaned forward, his heart beginning to race. The small baby he once refused to accept was now standing tall, confident, and full of life. Her smile was bright, her posture strong. There was something about her, something undeniable. She looked happy, really happy. Daniel's eyes moved to the caption beneath the photo. "So proud of my daughter for winning the national science competition. You've made me the happiest mom in the world." He read it again, and again. Daughter. The word echoed in his mind. Emma looked proud, not tired, not broken, not struggling the way he had once imagined she would be. She looked complete. Daniel felt something shift inside him, something deep and uncomfortable. Regret, a sharp, overwhelming wave of it. What did I do? He whispered to himself. His mind raced back to that day. The door closing. Emma standing there, holding Lily, the look in her eyes. He had convinced himself that leaving was the right decision, that he was protecting his future, that he deserved a life without complications. But now, staring at that photo, he saw the truth clearly. He hadn't escaped anything. He had run away from responsibility, from love, from a family that could have been his. Daniel scrolled further, his hands slightly trembling. There were more photos, birthdays, school events, small everyday moments captured over the years. In every picture, Emma and Lily looked connected, strong, happy. There was no sign of struggle in their smiles, only love. And suddenly, Daniel felt like an outsider looking into a life he was supposed to be part of, a life he had chosen to leave. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. All the success he had built, all the things he had achieved, none of it filled the space he now felt inside. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel everything he had been avoiding. The guilt, the loss, the realization that he had made a mistake he couldn't undo. I could have been there, he murmured. I should have been there. He imagined what life might have looked like if he had stayed. Watching Lily take her first steps, hearing her call him Dad. Being there for Emma, not leaving her alone when she needed him the most. The thoughts were painful, but they were real. Daniel stood up slowly, walking toward the window. The city looked the same as it always had, but he felt different, changed. For years, he had believed he made the right choice, but now he wasn't so sure. In fact, deep down, he knew the truth. He had made the biggest mistake in his life. And the hardest part wasn't just realizing it. It was not knowing if he could ever fix it. Daniel looked back at the photo one last time. Emma and Lily stood side by side, smiling without him. And in that moment, he understood something that hit him harder than anything before. Life had moved on, without him, but still a small part of him held on to a fragile hope. Maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to try. Regret has a strange way of arriving quietly, and then refusing to leave. For days after seeing that photo, Daniel couldn't focus on anything else. At work, his mind wandered. Conversations felt distant. Even the success he once took pride in now seemed meaningless. Every thought led back to the same place. Emma, Lily, the life he had walked away from. He tried to ignore it at first, just like he had ignored so many uncomfortable feelings in the past. But this time it was different. The regret wasn't fading. It was growing stronger. One night, unable to sleep, Daniel sat alone in the dark, staring at his phone. He opened Emma's profile again, looking at the pictures one by one. There were years of memories he had missed. Birthdays, school events, simple moments, smiles, laughter, quiet happiness. And in every single one, he wasn't there. A deep ache settled in his chest. I have to see them, he whispered. The decision felt sudden, but also long overdue. The next morning, Daniel found himself driving through familiar streets, roads he hadn't taken in years, places that once felt like home. His heart pounded harder with every turn. What would he say? Would Emma even want to see him? Would Lily? He didn't have answers, but he kept driving. Eventually, he stopped in front of a modest but warm-looking house. It wasn't large or luxurious, but it felt alive in a way his own apartment never had. Lights glowed softly through the windows. For a moment, Daniel just sat there, gripping the steering wheel. He could still leave, turn around, pretend he never came. But something inside him refused to let him run again. Taking a deep breath, he stepped out of the car and walked toward the front door. Each step felt heavier than the last. Finally, he raised his hand and knocked. The sound echoed louder than expected. A few seconds passed. Then the door opened. Emma stood there. Time had changed her, but in the best way. She looked stronger, more confident, and at peace in a way Daniel had never seen before. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Emma, Daniel finally said, his voice barely steady. Hi. Her expression remained calm, but distant. Daniel, she replied quietly. The silence between them carried years of unspoken words. I know this is unexpected, he began. "But I needed to see you. Emma didn't invite him in. She simply stood there, waiting." Daniel swallowed hard. "I'm sorry." The words came out heavier than he expected. "I've thought about that day every day," he continued. "About what I said, what I did. I was wrong." Emma's eyes softened slightly, but she didn't respond yet. "I was selfish," Daniel admitted. "I didn't understand what really mattered. I thought I wanted control, a perfect life, but all I did was walk away from the best thing I ever had." Behind Emma, a voice spoke. "Mom." Daniel's breath caught. Lily stepped into view. She was no longer the tiny baby he had once rejected. She stood tall, composed, her presence strong and undeniable. Her eyes met his. Calm, observant, but not warm. "Is that him?" she asked quietly. Emma nodded. Daniel felt his chest tighten. "Lily, You don't get to say my name like that," Lily interrupted. Her voice wasn't loud or angry. It was steady, honest, and that made it hurt even more. Daniel froze. "I know who you are," Lily continued. "I've always known. Mom never hid the truth from me." He nodded slowly, unable to speak. "You left," she said. "You walked away when I was just a baby." Her words were simple, but powerful. I didn't understand," Daniel said weakly. "I was scared. I made a mistake." Lily tilted her head slightly. "A mistake is forgetting something small. You didn't forget. You chose to leave." The truth in her words hit him hard. "I've spent years regretting that choice," Daniel said, his voice breaking. "I wish I could go back." Lily looked at him for a moment. Then she shook her head gently. "But you can't." Silence filled the space between them. Emma finally stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "We built a life without you," she said. "It wasn't easy. There were days I didn't think I could keep going. But we did." Daniel nodded, tears forming in his eyes. "I can see that now," he said. "And I'm proud of you. Both of you." Lily didn't react. Emma crossed her arms slightly. "Why are you here, Daniel?" The question was direct, honest. Daniel hesitated before answering. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. "I don't expect things to go back to the way they were. I wanted to say I'm sorry. And maybe, if it's possible, I'd like a chance to be part of your lives. Even a small part." Emma and Lily exchanged a glance. Years of shared strength and understanding passed silently between them. Then Emma looked back at him. "Some doors," she said gently, "don't reopen the way we wish they could." Daniel felt his heart sink, but he listened. "You made a choice," she continued, "and we had to live with it. We grew. We healed. We became stronger because of it." Lily stepped closer to her mother. "She gave me everything," Lily said. "Love, support, a home. I didn't grow up feeling like I was missing anything." Daniel closed his eyes briefly, the weight of her words settling deep within him. "I understand," he said quietly. And for the first time, he truly did. Emma gave a small, almost sympathetic smile. "I hope you find peace, Daniel," she said. It wasn't rejection filled with anger. It was something deeper, closure. Daniel nodded slowly. "Thank you for at least hearing me out," he said. He turned to leave, his steps slow and heavy. As he reached the gate, he paused and looked back one last time. Emma and Lily stood together in the doorway, strong, united, unbreakable, a family. And in that moment, Daniel finally accepted the truth he had been avoiding for years. He hadn't just left his wife. He had walked away from love, from purpose, from a life that could have been full. And now it was gone. Not because it was taken from him, but because he chose to let it go. As he walked away into quiet night, the weight of that realization stayed with him. Some regrets fade with time, but others become a part of you forever.